I'm going to turn it over to the chairman of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is the main architect of the master plan, and the head of the Planning Commission is Mr. Greg Hunter, who will chair the meeting. So it's yours, Greg.
Okay, well, here we have a little bit from the agenda. I think John Wood, the basketball coach from UCLA, one of his sayings was, be quick but never in a hurry. And hopefully we'll kind of follow that model, and we'll consolidate a few things and try to make sure that everybody has a chance to say what they want to say, but we can still get through the agenda on time and from there. So, what I did was I printed out another kind of agenda within the agenda where we can kind of go through the township and kind of touch on some of the areas that might be a little bit more areas that are in the process of being developed yet, or areas that we may want to work on, and then we can just kind of touch on those. And as we go through each one, just raise your hand if you'd like to comment on those. And then I think we'll end up at the Jensen Core area, because I think that will probably be the area that has the most discussion. So we'll try and get through everything, end up there, and then let people have as much time as they want to really deal with that thoroughly. First of all, we'll go through the reasons for the master plan, and I've got them on there. First, help direct growth in the desired development patterns. The second one is assist in planning for future public facility needs, and those include water towers, parks. One of the main things that we look at for the Planning Commission is road setbacks. That way, if it becomes a major arterial road, the county doesn't have to go back and pick up extra easement at a greater expense. And this is a good planning tool to make sure things work out well with the sites, and we don't have to create variances for parking and maintain a good green area. So, third one provides policy direction to help make wise zoning decisions and provides legal support for those decisions. And the Planning Commission, last time it was rezoning, we go through the 3 C's. Is it compatible with surrounding properties? Is it capable? Are the utilities in place? And the third one, is it consistent with the master plan? So all those 3 things really help the master plan be a tool for the Planning Commission as we look at rezoning. The next one provides stated public goals and policies to guide private sector, which the private sector includes businesses, residents, and developers. And I think, especially as we look at the Jensen Core, any potential buyer is going to want to take a look at the master plan to see what areas their desires and development are consistent with the master plan, so that they can work with the township easier. And it's the same thing that affects the residents too, because there's times when residents will buy a house and there'll be a vacant parcel next to it, and they want to know what's going in there ahead of time, so that they don't get surprises 5 years down the road with who their neighbors are. So a lot of this stuff is just common sense, and it's useful to just kind of quick go through it and just remind us as we go through this and that's your planning discussion. It also helps protect natural features. We're looking at the Bend in the River, we're looking at some of the muck areas where it's mainly agricultural use, and we mentioned those in the previous master plans, and it helped us too when we look at different requests for people that people come in with. The final thing is it identifies and helps maintain aesthetic value for the community. And one of the things we look at is what's important to the community, what we view as important. And with that, I kind of wanted to go into question 1, and we'll go around, and each person can introduce themselves, and then just kind of state an aesthetic value that they see is important, as each one of us are representatives of the whole township. So we'll just start with Dan here.
I'm the township manager in Carlton. And we've gone through this process quite a few times, and I think that people, the community aspect, as you mentioned, people are a primary thing that we don't have a large housing area. We have a lot of people and services that they love to need. So tend to agree with that. I think so many of us go to the areas for services and things that we desire. So the current time, I think, I agree with that. Services that you love. You know, so very across the community to work in place for the community. So it's certainly a tremendous value. Certainly greater potential as well for the township to the area that we have to expand to the road.
Don Heather with the Planning Commission. You know, obviously, people are here all over the field, but yeah, I think too, the main corridor coming in and how it's changed, how it's going to continue to change, and what doesn't become, that can be a big box. So what can we do to make sure that I think it's a really important part of the next 5 years. We've got property sitting there, we've got what are we going to do with it, and how does it help the community keep us who we are.
Steve Hall, Planning Commission. I too answer the question. I view this primarily as a better community. I think it's becoming even more evident now that we've seen a shift with Georgetown Mall opening up and what that has done in the surrounding areas. I think our chances of attracting a large retail store are awfully slim, especially now. And so I think we do need to focus on the fact that we are a better community. As far as aesthetic values of the township, I think we need to focus on the utilization of Grand River and the ravines, which we are already doing. It's just a beautiful area there in the Ravines Park. And I see the future of us making that kind of the cornerstone, if you will, of residents in this area. Have a park system along that route that we can utilize.
I think that, anyways, I share your comments, thoughts about that. Better community, you could say that of a number of suburbs, let's say, of various cities in the state, and some of which you wouldn't be all that proud of necessarily. I would say, to sort of put a more fine point on that, it's not just better community, it's a very livable, comfortable, better community. That is where you can just feel home. And so I like that not just as a term of art, as to all people come and sleep here and go elsewhere. They enjoy the residential nature of this sort of township, and I think it's a beautiful part of their lives. Aesthetic guy, when I think of that, you kind of grabbed me there because I was thinking park/river. We're looking to identify when I think aesthetic, I think beauty, and I think what sets us apart and unique, and that river sitting right there, and some of what we've already done with parks is some of what we could do in the future is around aesthetic guy.
I'm John Schwan, trustee, and I agree with all of you, and it's heartfelt to hear that you're committed to the community. I think we're on the same page. We're moving to a perfect transition here, particularly with Granville, the tremendous growth that's taking place there, and Georgetown Crossings Mall, Dr. Randy Zimmerman talks about 20 million visitors go there at a given year. That is just phenomenal what that's done to their area. But we've lost some Target, Hobby Lobby. That area is a gateway to our community, and I'm worried that if we're not able to improve that area, it's going to have a ripple effect to our entire area. I'm worried about right here on that facility, and down below the hill you have some older houses. How are we going to be able to attract young couples to our area, being a better community? I think we will. Values here, the tradition is here, it's growing dramatically. But with a new gateway going out there, first impression, I want to think about the college.
I'm Dale Moore, Georgetown Township Board. Our responsibility is to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of this township. I think we do a good job. We're a healthy community, we're definitely a safe community. The welfare, this community is the second most wealthy community per household in the county, superseded only by the one to the west of Georgetown Township. I feel that people, I agree with that, veteran community, people sleep here. And the reason they sleep here in the way that I feel, and they have the residency here, is when I query new people that come in here, number one reason they come here is students. Number two is safety, and we all agree it's a safe community. And number three, the livability of the house. You get a pretty good amount of house for the money, and that includes the taxation. So that's the kind of community I wanted to stay here. Commercially, yes, we are definitely hurting. I feel that Georgetown Township and its environs around here is like a sleeping giant and is still to be discovered. I probably won't be here, but 10 years from now, I don't think you're going to recognize an area here in regard to restaurants and businesses, because businesses, of course, want to go where they can make money. And I think it's just a matter of time that people discover, oh my word, there's 50,000 people. That won't make Granville happy, because now we all go to Granville pretty much to eat. But I think it's coming, and I am very excited about this community and the future of this community.
I'm Tom Healy, and I'm on the zoning board of appeals. And a couple of thoughts come to mind. First, compliments to the township board and the planning commission. I think you guys are doing an outstanding job. There's been some big changes in this community over the years. The gateway, the removal of the Kmart building, the improvement down at the corner of Baldwin and Main down there. Those are great improvements. And I think both boards, the planning commission, just really are doing an outstanding job. And one of the other things that I think is really piggybacks on what Dale was saying was the schools and the livability of this area. The library here, the kids can get on a bike down there at 48th Avenue and ride a bike to the library and be on a sidewalk the entire way. To me, that's enormously important for families. And those are some of the things that I think are really beneficial and just great positive aspects of this community.
I'm Joyce Weiss, I'm on the zoning board of appeals, background of landscape architect. I love Georgetown Township. I think it's a great place to live. That's part of the reason my husband and I moved to this community back in '92, because it was safe, and it seemed like it had everything we needed as far as that goes. I think the statement that it's a veteran community is correct, but I think you have to look at where we've been and where we're going. And we moved here, we were younger, now we're a little bit past 39. And, you know, I look at what I'd like to have near my home. And as a landscape architect, you know, we're always designing it, obviously, for the health, safety, welfare of the public, but you're trying to create communities around what you need. And, you know, we have grocery stores, we have kids, and yes, I go to Rivertown for my major shopping, but it would really be nice to see a different flavor for Georgetown Township than what we have at Rivertown. We don't need that here, it's there already. I like the idea of restaurants, but I'm not sure it's an Applebee's. I think it's more of a unusual type restaurant. Do we create a downtown Rockford? I don't know, we have the river. But what I see a lot here, what comes to my mind as a designer, is the opportunity for being outdoors, for parks, for, you know, what Tom was saying about sidewalks. I love sidewalks. I think sidewalks are extremely important. I worry when I see kids walking on the curb going wherever they have to go. I think sidewalks should be in every community because it's a safety issue. It keeps them out of harm's way. And I'm a walker, I love to walk. So I think whatever we do it, when I come home from wherever I've been, usually from Grand Rapids or Howland, and I come into Georgetown Township, that corridor really bothers me. It doesn't feel like, once I get past Meyer, come in the fall, and then I feel like, this is Georgetown Township. That area to me it's just not right. It's coming along, I'm not saying it's bad, but there's something about it. And the whole Chicago Drive corridor, I look at that land, and I don't know the whole history of it, but I look at the land between two lanes, and it's a waste. It just seems like traffic could be controlled much better here. I think going in and out of businesses along Chicago Drive is somewhat perilous. But, I guess that's just my point of view. I like some of what we've been doing with the new corridor in the Baldwin and Main Street area. I think the new sign with the water feature is okay. I was envisioning something a little bit different. I'm not sure it even really tells me I'm in Georgetown Township. It's a nice sign, but the whole theme has to be much broader, much different to brand the community and to tell people what they're coming to. So, when you drive into Allendale on M45, there is a theme there. I've designed commercial sites through there, and they have an exact outline of what they expect, so it's the same all the way through. And I'm not saying we have to do that to that extent, but I kind of like that, because when you're driving through, you're still in Allendale, because when you enter from the west side and exit the east side, they have similar features, similar aesthetics. So, it's a lot.
I'm Nicole House, I'm from the Planning Commission. To keep it brief, I remember we had really great comments and things that I thought myself. As far as the vibrant community, I certainly think it's a vibrant community. As my husband and I started a family, we considered where we wanted to live, and we looked at all the suburbs around the area and the school systems, and this is one of the top ones on the list. And I think it is for a lot of people all over the Grand Rapids area, maybe even the state. But when I do know people who are professionals that live downtown and they start their family and they're looking for somewhere to move out so they have more room and somewhere that's safe for their children and somewhere for them to go to school, and they look at Georgetown Township. And so I think of it as a good thing that we're a veteran community and somewhere that is a destination for growing families. As far as aesthetic value, the first thing that comes to mind for me is the river and the parks and the green space that we have here. I think we can have some unique things that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of. Sometimes the river tends to be somewhat hidden behind, when people see the Kmart building that went down, or even, driving down Chicago Drive, that's what they think of as Johnson, as opposed to Georgetown Township, as opposed to some really beautiful areas that we have around here. I guess that's what I mean.
Carol Scotland, Georgetown Township Treasurer, and we built our house in 1975, and since that time we raised 4 children there, and during that time, and I think today that raising a family is just as great as it was back then. I do agree too that it's a better community. One thing I think that is something that needs to be said is that like areas like Granville, where the mall is, and cities like Hudsonville, they're older than Georgetown Township is. We're a younger community. So I think with time, as like Dale said, I think we're going to be eventually more of a booming community. I think it's going to expand. I think we're just in that process yet. And as far as like the fountain area and that type of thing, like tonight, the board had a goal setting session, and we discussed excited. I was really excited for what's upcoming, what we've done so far, and I'm excited for what's ahead.
Hey, Rich Vanderklok. I'm the board representative to the Planning Commission. I would just say to everyone, GT, place to be. Georgetown Township is the place to be. It certainly is a veteran community, there's no doubt about that. I think everyone agrees on that. I think as far as the aesthetic values, we as a board have just, through the Services Committee, have just approved a 5-year park plan, and with the realization that someone alluded to the fact that we have homes below the hill and other places that are getting older, and what kind of resident would you attract? And we've talked about this, and the goal, of course, is as you add amenities such as parks and those kinds of things and provide those things, those are a draw for people, in addition to the schools, in addition to some of the other things that have been mentioned. And so that's really critical, I think, for us, and planning in terms of along the river and doing that in conjunction with the Ottawa County Parks Commission and their plans. I do believe that as we think about the future, particularly in our corridor areas, we're going to have to think seriously about mixed-use development. In terms of our zoning, we're going to have to look at some different approaches to zoning in that area. And I don't really know what that means, other than I know that at some point we're going to have a serious discussion, probably at the Planning Commission level, about mixed-use development in that corridor area, and that'll be significant, it seems to me. So I see that as being a major topic of discussion, and how that will impact our community, because we're living in a time of great change and transition, and that means that we as a community, as a township, we need to provide those services as well that will continue to attract people to Georgetown Township.
Chip Tuttle, Township Board Member. I haven't heard anything said that I disagree with, so I'm on board with everything that's been said so far. Including, I've been thinking a lot of what Rich just articulated very well, so I've got a few things that I'll just maybe tack on to that. One question, where all of our growth is occurring. Obviously, the Jennison zip code is pretty well built out as far as housing development, so we've got a lot of growth occurring out towards GVSU, out towards 48. So long term, I've got questions about that 48 corridor as well as around GVSU and all of the growth that's happening with the Eastbrook development and that, which gets to a lot of the neighborhood service zoning. And I agree we're a veteran community, we all agree we're a veteran community, but some of those bedroom community services that are necessary, I think we're tapping the limits of what we've got available right now. So I've got questions about where that growth occurs for things like the corner store or the dry cleaner or the coffee shop or the small restaurant. Kudos to whoever said keep having those. Maybe it was a phrase that way. And then the gateways, and I think that got to what Rich just said, as far as what is the zoning and what is the palette of zoning and construction that we allow. The township right now owns and has for sale 2 very visible properties in our gateways. And I would love for the Planning Commission to weigh in or make some decisions about this mixed-use development so that whatever ultimately ends up going on those properties is very aesthetically pleasing to the community and provides that nice exclamation welcome to Georgetown Township. And however we address the rest of the gateways is something that I think we need to think about for the long term as properties turn over and building occurs and all of that. So,
Mike? I'm pretty new to Georgetown, but some of the things I can tell you that drew me in, single person, tax rate, love parks. I know someone mentioned sidewalks. I have a dog that likes to get running, the sidewalks like that. Wonderful. And then, but when I do start a family, the school system.
I think one thing that nobody mentioned is go down Baldwin, probably the most public use that's not residential is churches. And faith is woven thread through the whole community that makes everything that you say good. From the senior housings that we have, we've got some of the best in the area, in the Sunset Manor, to the schools. The competition between the Christian schools and the public schools has been good for both and for the whole community, I think. And the safety issue that's, woven through that thread of faith too. So that's one area that's been established there. I don't know what that's going to mean in the future, but in the past that's served us well. Okay, the next thing that we talked about doing is just, you can see areas I highlighted, and I thought basically take a tour through the area, and there's laser pointers right in the center of the table, and if you want me to stop and you want to point out something, feel free to do so. But where we may start is at 44. Not that the one that doesn't work.
Like Ian's house in there,
Yeah.
It's huge.
Don't see there. No, I'm kidding. I got it from the Dallas store. And this one doesn't look like it's from the Dallas store.
Does it work?
We'll start out right here, and we'll head to 8th Avenue. One of the things is we've got Sunny Brook Golf Course. One of the elements of the master plan is open space. The Board of Appeals had a request a couple years ago to have a sign right in this area to help promote the restaurant there. And it wasn't, it was a different type of request, but the Board of Appeals did grant it. And the main reason was sticking with the master plan and doing everything we could to make sure this open space stayed open. And I think it's a good decision by the Board of Appeals, and that's something that's just really been a good thing for the traffic flow on 44th Avenue, and a good thing for the community and the golf course there, and a good thing for the home developments around it, and the new condominium development there also.
Greg, I don't know how, I'm at the southeast corner, the trees there by the golf course.
Right here?
Yeah, that parcel has been, they're shopping that parcel. They approached the township about a park. I don't know what the zoning is, but along those lines, that might be something to look at if we wish for that area to be green spaces.
Yeah, the thing we're going to have to check at is floodplain area and soil conditions.
Really not that well.
Right.
Yeah. But
What was the interest?
they brought it to the township 1 year ago, or 2 years ago, and said we should turn it into a park there. We just received it for information. They want to leave it on.
Is it a private developer or
It's privately owned right now,
Oh,
basically
so-
all of that tree area.
owner of the, okay.
So they wanted to sell it.
Okay, you can read that down, Mike, that's something to do from there. Okay, heading down to 8th Avenue. One of the fastest growing areas in the township without the services that Mr. Cullen mentioned is the Georgetown Shores area. And in this whole quadrant through in this area, there's not a terrible lot of amenities that are easy to get at without going across the railroad tracks or heading into Huffingdale. So I think we have an area right here for neighborhood commercial. We've got a request that's coming in February, and I can see where a lot of traffic coming here, making the right turn to go to M6. We're going to find that as an easy place to stop for goods on the way to work or so. So I think we'll be looking at this area here. Okay, then we can head up to 8th Avenue and then around Fort Sheldon there. Next big area is right in here. And Dan, if you can kind of give us an update or give us a little information on that.
Township parcels here you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about the private
Oh, yes.
area in here.
This area here, you can see right here is our Township Park at 8th Avenue. And this is all owned by Dave Mayer. This entire area, right up to the post office, this area behind that home here, this area is all his land. And the township's looking to put in a pedestrian path along the creek here, and then keep going along. And then whether we can get underneath or have to go around, then keep going along behind this property and then coming up Main Street. We don't know if this is feasible here. These bridges are pretty low, so we probably have to cross the road and then to get to the trail eventually for the county.
It's an incredibly beautiful area with a lot of potential, but the township, I guess, has been working, didn't want to get it all. His tendency is to wait. Okay, let's just not be on that. Next, we'll head down Chicago Drive corridor. There is a corridor study or corridor plan in place. A few places have been cleaned up. Right in, is this called that new area?
That's 18.
Okay, yeah. Like Kirkstra, the old Kirkstra site, which is now one of the things they did well, I think. They kept the green space there, and then they had a concrete fence for buffer. And in ways, that's probably about the best that we're going to be able to do in a lot of areas. There's a lot of used car dealers and everything here that are not going to do anything with their site because if they meet the requirements of the corridor plan, they're going to be able to only keep half the vehicles on the lot. So that's probably going to be a bit of a struggle yet for a while, but the things are in place with planning commission to keep on working on it. And like I said, it might just be a 10 or 20-foot green space there, and then control access and clean up the accesses, and hopefully we can make that look a little bit better. As far as the median, as Joyce had mentioned, that's something the planning commission can look at too. Okay, and then that's pretty much the whole story all the way to the corridor and Chicago Drive, and then I think we can head to New Holland and 48th Avenue. Well, in order to stay in the township, we have to be on New Holland, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll outside of town.
That's the Unity parcel right there.
Okay.
And we're in, here's the township border right here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll just head north on 48, the 48th Avenue corridor. I don't know if you read the study. It was done in 2004, and it's still pretty relevant because of the downturn that we went through. But we have all this muck area here, which it's just not very developable, so it's going to maintain, or it's going to stay on agricultural. Coming up here is the Youth Christian site, and they're going to be finishing their high school in September, and that's going to have a little bit of impact on traffic and stuff. And then Fort Sheldon 48, anybody have any comments on that? I'll start with that.
Those corners, how are those corners, across the road with the gas station, how is our?
It's right there, right behind the shed. No, no, right here.
Okay.
Very good. You can look at the plans. I believe it's all still residential characteristics, so yeah. You can see, we have listed as residential characteristics.
Okay. All set? 48 in Baldwin? One of the things that we talked about in the master plan too is entry statements or gateways or something, and we talked a little bit about this being a west door or whatever, so it could be
That's, I think that, isn't that 48 in Baldwin? 48, is that what we're looking
Yeah,
at?
that's what that letter was about.
Oh, yeah, I will be, so that is the parcel from residential to CS or NS.
His parcel is the northeast corner there.
So everybody's got a copy of that letter?
That's his parcel right here, right next to, like, his house.
So it says Pleasant Township rezones 10 acres on the northwest corner to C1 neighborhood commercial. So the opposing corner is already zoned. Whatever their designation C1 neighborhood commercial represents.
Could that possibly be like a little retail area at between, well, next to the high school or the junior high school and elementary school and Baldwin and 36? Is that
I think that area, that Baldwin 36, that is zoned for service commercial, isn't it?
okay? And that could be, this would also be right here.
Not the piece that he's asking about. In fact, this gentleman recently came in and met with myself and Dan to talk about the very thing that's in the letter.
Right, yeah. I mean, in the past, we talked about having a neighborhood, 36 involved with the Baldwin one, and then on 48 having one at Port Sheldon where it exists, and then having one at Bower Road where it exists already in London. So we're trying to manage to cross the street. And if they've added another one, that's a whole different thing to consider, but you know, we already have one a mile north and a mile south of this.
My understanding is tonight is brainstorming, the planning commission goes and does the work from here on developing the plan.
So the
So
planning commission is taking information, so this is your opportunity to give the planning commission your opinions and thoughts. So that's what this is for.
okay.
Right. Jenny?
Well, they're putting a housing development in there, did we just approve that?
And that's
Yeah.
next to Baldwin Oaks.
Right, so,
Well, it's going to be,
yeah, it's just, I don't know how many houses it was.
20-some, I think.
This is residential.
Huge, but they're putting, development in there.
what size, like acre size property? or-
No, I don't think they're that
No,
large.
they're small.
I don't remember, but they're,
I've seen.
oh, that's right, you did.
I don't remember exactly. I
They're
just-
smaller.
Yeah, I mean, it's a smaller, more than the it just, goes down and we have to close that. So, right behind the houses that are actually on 48th Street.
There's no egress to 48. Those lots in the front row of 48 do not belong to this development.
But it would be, keep in mind, keep going.
Rich, do you prefer to keep it residential?
That corner, that northeast corner, yes. The way there are certain uses that are permitted there now. The owner of the property just doesn't have someone who's willing to put up the type of building that could go there. Just doesn't have someone who wants to buy it for that reason.
And what would that be in church? Or-
No, I'm trying to think, what is it zoned as? Is it low? Is it low? It's not low density, maybe it's low density residential?
Is that what, 8 here?
No, I don't think that would be allowed in there either. I don't know right now.
Zone RR.
Yeah, but it's actually on the zoning map that was changed.
It's zoned RR, but, you know, it's still planned, access plan residential.
Because I thought that when he was here, it was low density residential.
That's the master plan part.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's no open door box, it's zone, see what you kind of see the open door.
Anything that fits within that category.
And not to mention, there's plenty of space available for the 1 2 mile east. So
So
there's
south,
Right.
around 36 involved, and there's still
empty spaces.
Room.
it's zoned that way.
Mhm.
For
Right.
And Any other questions, comments on that corner? Okay. Baldwin, 48th and Bauer. Dan, you want to update us on this corner?
This is the ice arena right here. You can see these are greenhouses, and then this is the kind of the started failed development with one building built here. That's kind of a whole difficult situation. They condoize it. In London, this is already commercial property right here. I can zoom in a little bit. I think this one's vacant right now. The junk storage moved out. This is zoned and for sale by the township, zoned commercial and for sale. So this is developable. There's, like I said, empty space here. I'm not sure about all the different units. I know one is the Kirkstra spot.
And is there going to be inquiries on that property?
No, not for commercial use.
Any questions, comments on there? You have to film one, and Chad, you were talking about this quadrant all through here, I think. That's mainly agricultural. There's the only dairy farm left in Georgetown Township right in that area.
Now, you can, from north of Fillmore there up to the university, it's our understanding the university just intends all of their growth to happen south of campus versus they're not going north to the Michigan project at all. So I think it's realistic to envision they'll keep creeping down to Fillmore and stuff. That's further down, Fillmore across from 24 on there. That's housing developments going on down there.
I think the outer right, from 36, once the eastward development plat continues to go west, this will be the next area that's going to see some pressure for residential development. Otherwise, there's not terrible lot left in the township.
I think that intersection of 48 and Fillmore in the long run is going to become a busier and busier intersection as the university develops and as that 48th Street plan develops. We don't know how those corners are probably both zoned residential residents. I think that house in Georgetown.
Okay, and then coming down Fillmore, all the way to Cedar Lake, I guess all the way into Jenison. If you'd like to take care of that dam and the bend in the river for me?
Sure. Is this viewable for you to see? I don't know how you're familiar with the county's plan. Basically, you can see to the upper left-hand corner, that's Grand Haven. And they have a corridor plan going all the way through. And is everybody familiar with this plan? Seen it? So from Grand Haven, they want to do basically a linear type park where some places would be trail and then pockets of park. You can see a lot of the green area coming all the way down and then right into Georgetown. Right here where existing trail is already started, coming in then it goes all the way into Millennium Park. So from there you get to Grand Rapids. So from the end of the trail here in Georgetown, you can make it all the way through eventually to Grand Haven. They would like to start with our section as soon as property acquisition can take place. So you can see they're actively pursuing the area. When I zoom in a little bit here, maybe I can make it a little bit here. Better. So from here you can see the Grand Valley. Here now coming the trail down, where you see the new ravines park that's just been advanced forward on the Allward and Turner properties, and right up against Grand Valley. And of course, Grand Valley is actively acquiring a lot of this land. So this is owned by the county. And then the trail will come down to this connect with the Grand River Park. And then they want the trail to come through here. And the pink is what needs to be acquired. And then you have the Bend in the River area park. And then the hard part is figuring out how to get down through here with Walnutwood, getting past there or getting at the put on top of it. but then connecting to the area right here where you can go into Lake Park to the regular trail system. So, and then of course we're looking to extend it. We talked about that earlier to the park down through the Rush Creek to be able to come and get you that different aspects in Georgetown.
It's possible you could kayak all the way from here. Either going to Lake Michigan, or if Grand Rapids takes their dam though, you could kayak up there, kayak the rapids, and go home. One area that's been frustrating for me, I think this is the old Haverding Farm.
Yeah, right.
They moved a drainage ditch right through here, and so we're ending up with 3 lakes in there. And there's government entities that are involved, and they were not able to do one big lake and move that drainage easement out there. It seemed like it would be in everybody's best interest if you ease those regulations with digging that ditch, have one great big lake here, and ask the people to consider donating that piece so that you can tie the whole park in place. I've spoken to Dan about it. It's tough.
It's tough with regulations involved.
Common sense tells me that it'll be good for everybody, because for any houses that we build in here, gravel is an essential element to building those houses too. And once you build on it, you just can't use it again. So. Okay, I think that brings us to the core area. So I guess we can start out with the first question, and we'll just kind of go around the table. And the first question I got, should it be a mixed-use development? And by mixed use, that means residential included in any type of commercial that you have or any other uses that you have. So we'll just start with you, Mike, and we'll go around the other way this time. I'm in favor of seeing a mixed use development in that area. Right, right. Mixed use could be live work. That's a form of residential. It could be single family residential. It could be condominiums. It could be apartments. It could be senior housing. Okay. Chad?
It's hard for me to envision all the possibilities, I guess. I wouldn't prefer to see like high density housing in there per se, but I'm not opposed to, there's one of those developments, like you got cute little downtown town where you've got some people living over top of the shops that they're running or renting apartments up there. I'm open to that. So.
Rick? Yes, I'm in favor of mixed-use development, again, depending, but I think it's something that we see more and more in other communities, and I think as growth happens, that we'll have to really address it.
Eric?
In favor of mixed use also, but like Chad, I would want like a high density. Piece of a store that can then
Jane?
I don't necessarily see it. I think maybe if there was some sort of, maybe that's what we're doing now, but I don't see it the way that it's planned now, that there's any space that you would put a residential unit, even if it was attached to a business, that people would be drawn to that space. I just don't see it. I think a lot of people that want that type of space or are looking for that type of space are not looking to be in our community. So I could be persuaded otherwise if I was shown some evidence that there was, that it was feasible, but I don't
back with small, tiny apartments or condos, but something nice that would give living space as well as restaurants, small, boutique, Matt Applebee's type restaurants and dry cleaner shops, things that we all need that would be useful for us who have homes in the community, but also for young professionals and people who are moving from that college apartment to their first condo or townhome, and then hopefully they're going to love our township and then move out, into one of our homes. So to me, if you have these central communities that radiate out and we offer different amenities where you can, like what Joe and I love, you can go from 40th Avenue right up to 36th and Baldwin and get Subway sandwich or pizza or something. And that's really important. We've often said it'd be nice if we had a gas station close by too in the right spot. So I think younger professionals too are going to want to be able to walk and ride their bikes, and I love that whole idea of the corridor for walking. So if that's a central location where it all comes into play, that could be really good for our township.
I don't know if the mixed-use categorization removes other options like medical offices or anything.
It allows mixed use. It could be office, it could be commercial, it could be residential, it could be public.
It seems that flexibility is pretty critical in that area. The big box kind of arrangement that was there, the Kmart arrangement, it worked for a while, but it is not going to be it's not going to be a successful use of that property. It doesn't seem at this point or forward. And the mixed use allows, perhaps the parcels will be broken into smaller sized units where there might be some office space that could be used functionally, and it might spur that development more quickly. And I think that flexibility is critical.
Yeah.
I have no problem with mixed use. I would have some concerns with any large apartment complexes.
John?
I agree with Dale, and Colliers had mentioned the possibility of them getting some kind of medical facility for Langdale per se. And I agree with Carol, Chad, as far as I would want to see high density, but right there too, that would be a beautiful area. There's some good mention.
Jim?
Kind of throwback concept in a way, you think about the center of Greenville there. My parents used to live above Durgan's way back in the day, and I think there's still people that live in some of those apartments above. And that those areas are getting revived in different cities. You mentioned Conroe and Chad. I think if we envision that sort of mixed use, we all, well, that's it, I'm not sure whether we draw that, but maybe if we did so in the context of, and I don't know the interplay as well as yourselves and Dan, but like a PUD, like somebody had drawn up something for the property where Kmart once stood, and it looked like almost like a strip of downtown Highland or what have you, where you try to create that two-story, community with shops and so on, and maybe living above it. That I envision would take the form of some form of PUD, and whether you have to necessarily therefore have a mixed-use zoning in order to include within a PUD, way to say it doesn't matter if it's mixed-use or not in a PUD, it could just be approved. That might be the better vehicle for it. It's odd because typically we're dealing with commercial spreading into residential and getting everybody up in arms from the residential area. Now we're talking about the reverse. It seems less likely that you get as much objection as you would going the other direction, but by the same token, if it were the case, I'd want it to be a buyer beware sort of thing, which is that, once they used to say those who develop communities near pig farms and then would complain that the pigs smell, well, pig farmers were there first, you want to come in and you want to live in a commercial downtown area that doesn't maybe have a lot of residential, you kind of take the good and the bad if you're going to be one of those who chooses to reside there, and that can have to be real clear, that you're not going to come in and then begin to impose things upon your neighbors because you happen to reside there and you chose to be in a mostly commercial area. So piecing it all together, there's an openness there. I think there's probably a smart way to do it. It'd be nice to see it in the context of something quaint.
Steve?
I'm going to disagree just a little bit with the tenor of the table here, if I may. Focusing only on the areas on Chicago Drive, specifically the Old Kmart area, the Target area, and then even further to the west. I think there's a large, obviously millennials these days are different, I think, in some respects from other generations. In that I think we might find a generation that's more content to rent. And I'm talking more of a high end. I think going down to the third question here, as far as the connectivity with Grand Rapids downtown, the accessibility of the expressway right there. Also, if it is a situation where there's bike trails available going to the east to Grand Rapids, also to the west to Grand Haven. Like you mentioned, kayaking, if the river is developed, I can foresee that area being very, very popular place to live. Not to disagree with you, but I think that would be an attractive spot for millennials to rent with that kind of access to the expressway, to the river, the bike trails. I think you're going to see more and more of that generation content to be renting long term. Also, the other end of the spectrum, seniors, the baby boomers keep aging. Would that be a spot for a senior center? I would envision perhaps multiple projects along that corridor that are aimed at housing. With regard to the other spaces that we're kind of talking about this whole area, would I envision a mixed use for the corner of Baldwin and Main? No, not right there. I think also, this might be jumping ahead, but the corner of Cottonwood and Baldwin, where the Subway and I think it's a bridal shop and then the professional building, that is available for sale. And I've heard that whether Walgreens or whoever is not interested in it, that might be an area that if the township is able to get money from other sources, I don't know where the funding exactly would come from, but I foresee that as being a green space. An excellent spot for a green space. So again, that's I think the area we're talking about.
Well, kind of the combination. I think it's a balancing act of what the community wants, what the millennials want, what best fits. I think it's been a moving target for a while until you see who wants to come, who starts the party. Who starts the party brings more to the thing. And then, to say it's residential, the mix, I think it's too early to tell. I think it's kind of a combination. I don't know how, I don't know who or how is it luck that these other counties and other places have, struck the gold? I don't know what it is. Maybe they're ahead of us and been around longer. I don't know, but it's. I guess for all of it, it just depends on how it starts and how we model it to that point. I just go in and say this is the way it's going to be. That may not be what
I think what we got to stay focused on is the one thing, the reason for the master plan, provide stated public goals and policies to guide private sector. So what we're doing is throwing out some ideas here so that when people come to look at these sites that are listed, they say, okay, these are some of the things that the planning commission was directed to look at. So if it's a mixed use, then that means there's some residential, and then we got some ideas of what kind, and we can go back. I've got it listed down there further too, so that we can do that.
And I tend to agree with you. I think it just doesn't have that flavor for me to a place where I would want to go live because of how busy that whole. It's like a whole commuter area. And so, but I think certainly we have to be able to get it. And the people that want to develop it will drive what's going to eventually occur there. And those people are the creative ones that are going to say, hey, look, here's the idea, here's the partnerships that they're going to put together that make some happen. But certainly I think we're going to make hope. But I don't think we can ourselves.
next item, this will include some open space. We want usable open space or aesthetic open space. We want landscaping, or we want something that we can look at and people can be active in. Dale?
I'm more prone towards usable, primarily first. I think we have to be aware, especially south of Chicago guy. The rest of the township is very well provided by technologies. Other than 875, and the development that's going out very much further south, we better get cognizant of it. Or certainly usable green space in that.
Don?
I think the concept of a, perhaps a park concert area where the old church was removed, that has its attractive qualities. I don't know if we're there as a community at that point. It's not as progressive like East Grand Rapids or like Holland downtown. We're not there, but also, I don't see athletic fields in that area. There's too much congestion, and it's too busy, in my estimation, for kids to be constantly out and moving around in that area. I think that's kind of a recipe for trouble.
Joyce?
I dream about that space when I drive by almost every day, and the traffic the way it is there. It has to be a real special use area. I hate to see it just be, as much as I love landscaping, I would love for it to be like a marketplace or something. But I'm concerned about traffic and how traffic is managed in that area because of all the different roads coming in there. I love the corridor to get on, the new corridor to get on the highway. I think that's wonderful. But maybe that adds to the problem. So, or not a problem, the opportunity.
Janine, usable or
I like the idea of usable space rather than just an aesthetic space. But I do share also the concerns with the traffic. I mean, at 5 o'clock or whenever, I mean, it's backed up to miles right there. If there's ever an accident, it's just a complete mess there. So I do also share the concerns with traffic and thinking about families or little kids walking around there. It makes you a little bit nervous. But I again, I like the idea of some sort of usable space in the marketplace or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's more usable.
Rich?
Yeah, I also usable open space.
Ted? Usable? Everybody's usable? Okay. Maybe we can encourage developers if they look at it that way.
I'm sorry to that.
We wouldn't really that too fast. After 8:30, we start.
Ben's long, I can speak to something, I get concerned.
We're getting close to that, and hurry from quick, so.
Yeah, Jim wanted to say something.
There is a place though for
Okay, Jim?
aesthetic open space that would otherwise accommodate usable. That is, its dimensions would mirror. By that I mean the immediate portion of either gateway there. Maybe presently exists in that form, but they could. So it would be a place where sort of as a buffer between your now entry and something. So.
Do you have anything else?
Only that we talked about usable space like at farmers market, place for concerts. That would be one opportunity for that. Something to give us a gathering area for the community. Well, like Granville's been doing is sensational with tree lighting and a full one. We like it.
One thing that's always happened is, if you drive down in that commercial area, any day, any weekday, go through any parking lot and you'll find 3, 4, 6, sometimes 8, 9 cars of people just sitting there like eating food in their car. And I always thought that there was a spot that, for those people that are grabbing fast food and eating it, but there's a spot that they consider that they would pull up and rather than stare at a building,
because there is railroad there, you know, there is bus lines that are real close to that site. The Grand River is right there, bike trails are there. One thing, I don't know how many people run the river run, but it really is running distance from downtown Grand Rapids to our place, because river run is 15 miles and they run basically to our front yard and then turn around and go back. So I think sometimes we're closer to downtown GF than what people really realize. Okay, I'll just kind of leave it for open discussion as far as residential development. It seemed like most people kind of touched on that a little bit. Does anybody have any other comments regarding that? I can maybe just lead into this a little bit. I think the market is just going to dictate this, and it might be the right use to have a higher density residential, but it might be 10 years down the road instead of 5 years down the road. I know there is a trend, like what Steve had said, for not only millennials to rent, but also baby boomers who didn't do so well with their mortgages 5 years ago or so, and they just really don't want to get in that situation again. I think that what you're also seeing from the people that I talk to in the building business is that the higher density residential is a different market, and there's a lot of amenities. It's not like the apartments that we've seen that are 800 square feet and they're all the same, and maybe you get a carport that's the only amenity you get. I think you're seeing a different form of rental unit with a different market in renting. So just something to kind of keep in mind as we approach this. The one thing we didn't touch on is the commercial development. We'll just go around again and give us your thoughts on what you think should be there. One thing with Board of Appeals, we've seen 2 applicants come in, and one is a building that would be a meat market and a bakery, and it hasn't gone past that other than getting a variance. So I don't know if it's going to continue on, but when you talk about a walkable community, those are 2 of the types of businesses that you do like to see and that people that live down there would like to use. Commercial development, done.
I think it has to be an integral part of growth and of better community. I think you still need that, that commercial space, not a large commercial, but just, that kind of stuff.
Steve?
Yeah, again, I think this is dictated by those who come to us. We can't say, oh, we want this here, we want there. We did that for 30 years with the Kmart area, it just never happens. So really, we're at the mercy of what wants to come in. I think we're kidding ourselves, though, if we think there's going to be this huge influx of commercial stuff coming into our area. And if you do talk about the smaller boutique-type shops, like a meat market or a meat store, there is existing office space or commercial space in our community for those already. So I don't know if you're going to get a whole lot of people wanting to open a small shop like that, building it from scratch. Now, maybe I'm not looking at it. It's dictated by who comes to us.
Jim?
I know what I don't want. Strip malls, we were able to discourage that. We want to attract more. We want to attract a couple of sit-down restaurants that want to sign one type or another. And that can be effective. And like you said, the market will somewhat dictate that you can open the door wider, be it with the alcohol permits and so on that we now have, et cetera. So I'd like to see restaurants develop it. There's some more possible, service type uses.
I think we're to be successful here, I think you have to have a niche. I think it's a little bit different than a mile away. The people will travel to be in our area.
So once again, you're talking service commercial more,
Right.
like Jim said.
And the potential here that the traffic we have is excellent. It's just amazing. We have 50,000 people here. We have just one liquor license that's being used, and 30 are available. People
before driving that motor line.
Yeah.
I think it's dictated by probability. If you can make money here, you'll come. I think it's just, as I mentioned in the earlier statement, I think it's just undiscovered.
The one thing that I would like us to stay away from, if we could, is one of those massive population centers like a hotel or something to that effect. I don't think that's a good long-term kind of move. Something that's going that way.
I hate for it to become like East Paris and 28th Street type situation. I'd rather see it that stretch coming into Holland, whether it's starting to develop like Airport and how they did. It looks like a whole quaint downtown area. I guess that's what I have in my mind. And when you talk about the mixed use, I think if I were a young person right now looking for a place to live, there's two areas I'd look at. Look downtown Holland, and I look at some of the newer buildings that are being transformed downtown Grand Rapids that are close to the hospital and universities. That to me is exciting. And if I were in my 20s, that's where it's at. And I probably would look for something I could invest in instead of rent, but that's my thinking. At my age now, maybe as a millennial, I think more like you. But
Janine?
I could either for service.
Carol?
Something smaller commercial, and then restaurants.
Good.
Yeah, I would service commercial, but others have talked about along those lines.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think if you talk to business developers, they talk about the range that businesses need to draw in to look at a market. And I think we're talking about businesses that are just in that 5-mile radius, which is your baker, your butcher, candlestick maker, whatever it is. But I think as long as we're all here, I might also throw out, we talk about liquor licenses and we still have 30 available. We've got some pretty stringent restrictions on our liquor license, and we would not, under our current ordinance, allow a brewery, for example. But that's something that we might have to decide in the future. Do we want to hold firm on that, or do we not want to hold firm on that? Because obviously, it seems like in the greater Grand Rapids area, a brewery pops up every 30 days, whether we need one or not. So, do we want to exclude ourselves from that, or do we want to open our market to that? I think that's the question.
Mike?
I would love to see more cities.
Scott? I just skipped you, Dan. That's all. We're basically to the end of our agenda, and I'd let Dan wrap up. Being the liaison between the planning commission and the board. So, anything you'd like to say in closing?
We talked about, I just agree that it's kind of a community, smaller, a little more flexibility we need to consider sometimes with a lot of different zones between our light industrial and our commercial zones, sometimes a little crossover. So I think planning is doing a great job. If we stay involved, that should work through that.
Last thing on the agenda is public comments. So if somebody would like to speak, we got a few opportunities here. We got a little bit of time. And then after the public hearing is closed, then if we want to just leave it during the meeting, if we want to sit and talk to the planning commission members or board members or so, feel free to do it. Does anybody like to speak? We should have your name and address for the record.
Sure. Michael Bosch, 896 Fairwood Court. I just want to say, Greg, you touched on it right off the bat, how faith is that common thing that bonds us together, and that's why everything that Georgetown is. And I think that's fantastic. That's one of the best things I've ever heard at 1550 Baldwin. And I'm serious about that. And I think if we acknowledge that, we keep that in mind, I think that's what we need for development. I think as far as creating like a downtown Holland or East Grand Rapids, it's just not going to happen. It's not our specialty. To try to create something that doesn't exist never works. So I think that's something we should keep in mind. We're a veteran community. That's great. People love it. And I say, let's not try to be something we're not. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Yes, please. Hello, my name is And I found this meeting extremely illuminating, and I'm really enjoying hearing all of your ideas about how you want the township to proceed. I am very interested in the mixed-use idea that you guys are putting out. I'd like to point out that Allendale has a very small area where we have a breakfast cafe, and it has very small businesses on the bottom and apartments on the top. It's a very small area. It's not this huge downtown area that they tried to make. They've just placed this mixed-use area right there in Allendale. They're similar to New Grand Rapids, and people really like it. And there's people up in the apartments and they can walk right down and use, whatever is downstairs. So I just wanted to point out that I thought that was a great idea to look at that. And then also, the big reason I'm here is to ask the Planning Commission to please take up looking at allowing chickens and other small barnyard animals, in the township. We've had a lot of interest on it in the Georgetown specific Facebook group. A lot of chatter from close to about 100 residents on the subject. Most of it is supportive. Today I've hand delivering to you 27 letters that we gathered in less than a week from people on this subject, asking you to please take a look at this and to do it quickly. And one thing I'd like to say about it is most people are interested in the least restrictive type of policy that you can come up with. We are very independent here in Georgetown. We have a lot of self-reliance here, and we'd like to make sure that people are not have to get permits or make it any more difficult for them to have something like backyard chicken than we need to make it. So I will give this to you. And there's personal comments on the bottom of this one letter. I hope you all read it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that'd like to speak?
Edward Solsa, 7927 Kinmont Court, Madison. I want to commend all you guys. I think that's great, all the conversations this evening. At Wonder Baldwin, it's really difficult because of all the traffic there and those kinds of things, but I'm just thinking out loud. I don't have any specific thoughts or ideas, but I'm thinking back with that picket fences in the back, I don't know if you have any thoughts or plans of getting rid of those warehouses there. I know you have the idea of putting the road to the river. There's got to be something there that you can connect that river idea and beautification there or whatever, and then instead of going the V shape, up 200 Baldwin, maybe you could buy all those warehouses and move a new street, a crossway, maybe, I don't know if you have to get rid of the tattoo parlor and the muffler man, but create a street through there. It's kind of like the old, from what I understand, the old Main Street of what Jensen used to be. And I don't know, maybe you can offer some opportunities for some of our current businesses, because we have a lot of businesses that are scattered all over the place. Maybe you could offer some incentives that, for example, if you're going to tear down the strip mall where the meat market is, to give them an incentive to move to that area and create some building, or I don't know if you do any tax things or any that kind of incentives to get businesses to move in that area. Because I think once you get the ball rolling and people see things happening, I think you'll get more businesses maybe moving in or maybe moving from another area or going out and getting people to think about moving to our area. But I think that area is pretty important, but it's pretty difficult with the street. I know you want to put the Veterans Memorial there. I just want you to be careful about that. I would not want to drive in through Jensen and the gateway and see a tank sitting there or something. I'm for beautification. I think faith is great, good, clean community. And I think if we're known for anything in this community, it's about safe, like we talked about, faith, cleanliness, upward mobility, and those kinds of things. I like the idea about the trails connecting for our future. So I commend you on that. And so, like I said, I don't have any specific ideas, but just some suggestions for you. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Dave Larkin, 8294 Cottonwood. I don't have much to say, just let's not be turkeys about chickens. Let's pass a sensible ordinance. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
Lauren Peck, 2695 Howard Road. I'm also here because of concern with the chickens and desire for that. There are more and more people interested now in where their food comes from and that type of thing. Concerned about, and I'm concerned that we're losing a lot of areas, we talk zoning and that kind of thing. We're losing a lot of our agriculture and that type of thing in areas where we can grow our own food. And yet there is so much that you can do on a residential lot. My husband and I didn't grow up in the country. We grew up in smaller areas, in the suburbs, that type of thing. And so there's a lot of, we didn't grow up with farm animals and that type of thing. But we've had the privilege of being able to do that. We have learned so much, and our children have had the privilege of that and learning, you know, where their food comes from, not just minors in plastic packages and that kind of thing, but and the whole life cycle and responsibilities of chores, and that, you know, it happens every day, whether you feel like going out into sub-zero temperatures or not, and so it teaches them that responsibility and hard work. We have learned so much. And we have a wonderful fair here, the Hudsonville Fair, with the 4-H, the animals in there, and the sad thing I've seen in the last few years, especially if you go through the chicken barn, there's fewer and fewer there. And you know, I think part of that comes from just this whole feeling of we can't do that. And there is so much you can do in a small area like that. And so I would really like to see that considered. There are a lot of communities around us that are taking a second look at it and saying, you know what, this is a good thing. So I request that you consider that.
Just a comment about the fair.
Yes.
The chickens, my kids are in 4-H. The reason the chicken barns are empty is because of disease, and the process that you have to go through in order to bring the chickens there and have them okayed by the health department, that's why a lot of the barns are empty for the poultry. Thanks for your comment. Anybody else like to speak? Okay, we'll close public hearing. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.